Have you ever wondered if a single moment can change the course of two lives forever? Well, get ready for a story that proves it can. It all started on a dusty battlefield. In the chaos of battle, every second feels like an eternity. For me, a combat medic, that eternity was often spent with my hands covered in dirt and blood, trying to cheat death. I've seen more than my share of heroes, but one story, one face, has stayed with me through all the years. It was during a particularly intense firefight. The air was thick with smoke and the deafening sound of explosions. I was moving from one fallen soldier to another when the call came through my earpiece. A man was down, pinned by enemy fire, and losing blood fast. His name was Sergeant Jack Riley. Without a second thought, I grabbed my aid bag and started running. It was one of those runs where you don't think, you just move. The world narrows down to a single point, the wounded soldier. I finally reached him, tucked behind a crumbling wall. He was conscious, but barely. A piece of shrapnel had torn through his leg. He was pale, his breathing was shallow, and his eyes were full of a quiet fear that I knew all too well. "Hey, stay with me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're going to get you out of here." My hands went to work almost on their own. Applying a tourniquet, packing the wound, trying to stop the bleeding that was stealing his life away. He was fading. I remember looking into his eyes and telling him to think about home, about his family, about anything that would give him a reason to hold on. I told him my name. "I'm Chris," as if that personal connection could somehow anchor him to the world. The bullets were still flying, but in that small space it was just the two of us, fighting a different kind of war. I kept talking to him about stupid things, about what I'd eat when I got back, anything to keep him with me. Finally, a lull in the fighting, the extraction team arrived. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, he grabbed my arm. His grip was weak, but his eyes were clear for a moment. He whispered, "Thank you," and then he was gone, airlifted out of the dust and chaos, leaving me with the sound of the helicopter blades fading into the distance. In the whirlwind of duty, you often don't get to know the fate of the people you treat. You do your job, you pray you did enough, and you move on to the next person who needs you. Jack Riley became another face in my memory, another name I hoped had made it home. Life after the military was a different kind of challenge. The adrenaline was gone, replaced by a quiet that was sometimes louder than any explosion. I became a paramedic in a small town, a world away from the desert battlefields. The work was still about saving lives, but the context was completely different. Years passed. The memories of the war softened, but they never disappeared. They were part of who I was. I often wondered about the soldiers I'd helped, especially Jack. Did he make it? Did he get to go home to his family? I had no way of knowing. One afternoon, I was at a local community event. It was a fundraiser for veterans, and I'd volunteered to be on the first aid stand. It was a beautiful day, full of families, laughter, and a sense of peace that I cherished. An hour or so into my shift, a man walked up to the stand. He had a slight limp, a warm smile, and a little girl holding his hand. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. He pointed to the medic patch on my old jacket, which I wore sometimes out of habit. "You were a combat medic?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, a long time ago." He looked at me intently, his smile fading a little, replaced by an expression of dawning recognition. "My name is Jack Riley," he said. The world stopped. It was him. Older, with a few more lines around his eyes, but it was him, the man from behind the crumbling wall. The man whose life I held in my hands. I was speechless, all I could do was stare. He saw the recognition in my eyes. "Chris?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. I just nodded, a lump forming in my throat. He pulled me into a hug, a strong, grateful embrace that said more than words ever could. "I never got to thank you properly," he said, pulling back. "You saved my life?" He gestured to the little girl beside him. "This is my daughter, Lily. She wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. My wife, my family. I got to have all of this because of you." Lily looked up at me with big, curious eyes. My own eyes started to fill with tears. For years, I had carried the weight of my experiences, the ghosts of the past. I saw the faces of those I couldn't save more often than those I did. But in that moment, seeing Jack, healthy and happy, with his beautiful daughter, it was like a heavy weight was lifted from my soul. All the training, all the fear, all the moments of doubt and exhaustion, It all led to this. This was the why. This was the happy ending you so rarely get to see. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking. He told me about his recovery, the multiple surgeries, the physical therapy. He told me about meeting his wife, starting his family, building a life he almost didn't have. And I told him how I'd never forgotten him, how I'd always wondered. It's a strange and powerful thing to meet someone whose life you've touched so profoundly. It's not about being a hero, it's about connection. It's about a single moment in time that ripples out and creates a future. For a medic, there is no greater reward than seeing the life you fought for being lived to the fullest. Jack and I are good friends now. Our families get together for barbecues. Our past is what brought us together, but our present is what keeps us connected. Every now and then, I look at him playing with his kids in the backyard, and I'm right back in the dust and smoke holding his life in my hands. And I'm reminded that even in the darkest of places, there is hope. There is a reason to fight. And sometimes, against all odds, you get to see the beautiful outcome of that fight. It's a reminder that the bonds forged in the toughest times can last a lifetime. Thank you for letting me share this piece of my story with you. If you found this moving, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories. Stay safe.